Hi, boys and girls. Mr. Ruba here. This week in Reader's Workshop, we're going to continue exploring nonfiction books. Remember, nonfiction books are books that have real information in them, books that are trying to teach us something. Now, last week, we explored Gail Gibbons' books. This week, we're going to explore books about birds. Something that readers do to understand the text is they stop and jot throughout the pages. Stopping and jotting means when you look at a book and you're reading, and after a page, you might have some thoughts that come to your mind, such as you might learn something new on that page. You might read a page and think, this is kind of confusing. I'm not sure what it's telling me. Sometimes when you're reading through a book, you may want to stop and jot a connection that you might make. Or maybe there's a funny part in the book that you want to stop and jot. Stopping and jotting is writing down something or writing down your thoughts about a text so that eventually you can talk about it or share about it or go back and look at it. When I stop and jot, I like to use Post-its. So I'm going to read the book Feathers, Not Just for Flying by Melissa Stewart, illustrated by Sarah S. Brannon. And as I read this book, I want you to follow along with me and notice how I do some stop and jotting. There'll be times where I stop during the reading and I'll write down my thoughts and on a Post-it, and I'll post it right in the book. That way, when I'm done, I can go back to it and look at all my notes. Just looking at this page right here, Feathers, Not Just for Flying, I know that this book is probably going to be about feathers. And the fact that it says not just for flying makes me think that their feathers do something else than just helping birds fly. Let's figure out what it's going to tell us. Birds and feathers go together, like trees and leaves, like stars and the sky. All birds have feathers, but no other animals do. Most birds have thousands of feathers, but those feathers aren't all the same. That's because feathers have so many different jobs to do. So here, this is showing me all the different kinds of feathers. And what I like about this is on the bottom, it tells me what type of bird these feathers represent. What I think that's really important about this part and on this page is that it says that feathers have so many different jobs. That's something I didn't even know about. And I think that's really important, is that we know that feathers aren't just for flying. Feathers do other things for birds. So because I think this is an important part for me to remember, I'm going to stop and jot. I'm going to take my Post-it and I'm going to write down important part and my thought. Okay. So here's my Post-it. I'm just going to put this right here for myself. And I put important part. Feathers have many jobs for birds. Feathers can be warm like a blanket. On cold, damp days, a blue jay stays warm by fluffing up its feathers and trapping a layer of warm air next to its skin. I notice here in this picture too that it has a caption here. And this caption helps me to understand what this picture is about. And here it says a blue jay, Bradbury Mountain, Maine. So this tells me it's a blue jay bird and it's in Maine. or cushion like a pillow. A female wood duck lines her nest with feathers she plucks from her own body. These feathers cushions the duck's eggs and keep them warm. Feathers can shade out sun like an umbrella. As a hungry tri-colored heron wades through the water in search of food, it raises its wings high over its head. The feathers block out reflections from the sky and shade the water. This makes it easier to spot tasty fish and frogs. Or protect skin like sunscreen. On sunny summer afternoons, red-tailed hawks spend hours soaring through the sky in search of prey. Their thick feathers protect their delicate skin from the sun's harmful rays. Feathers can soak up water like a sponge. On sizzling summer days, a sound grouse cools off by soaking his belly feathers in a watering hole. Then he flies to his nest. While he guards his chicks, the little ones quench their thirst from the feathers. Or clean up messes like a scrub brush. Feathers can distract attackers like a bullfighter's cape. What I like here about this is that it shows me what a bullfighter is, and it compares it to a bullfighter. So this tells me that the feathers help to make the bird feel strong. Or hide a bird from predators like camouflage clothing. So this bird has a camouflage which helps it to blend in with its environment so it hides away from its enemies, which is kind of connected to like military camouflage. And military have these green markings, which is like a camouflage, so that they blend in so that their enemies can't find them. Feathers can make high-pitched sounds like a whistle. Feathers can dig holes like a backhoe. Or carry building supplies like a forklift. Here, they show a picture of a forklift. Sometimes I feel like I've seen these maybe at like a Home Depot or a Lowe's store. That's what this reminds me of. In Home Depot or Lowe's, sometimes they have these trucks that kind of lift up all that heavy wood or all those heavy products and put them on the shelves. Looking at this, and I see how the bird can only really hold so many materials in its mouth to build its nest. This makes me wonder how long it takes a bird to make a nest. Unfortunately, it doesn't use its hands like we do to build things. So instead, it has to pick up stuff and make a nest. So I do wonder how long it takes for them to make a nest. I'm going to go ahead and stop and jot this question down, this wonder question I have, because I'm curious to see if maybe I can find my answer in the book. So I'm going to take my Post-it. I'm going to write down my wonder. this right here. This makes me wonder how long it takes for a bird to make a nest. Feathers can help birds float like a life jacket. Mute swans glide smoothly across the water's surface. Pockets of air trapped between their feathers help these graceful birds stay afloat. Wow, see, I didn't know that. I always did wonder how birds float, because I know that sometimes for us, when we're in a pool or in the ocean, it's not always easy for us to float. And I would think that if a swan is probably heavy, so how come it doesn't sink? So now in this page taught me something new. It taught me that feathers are the things that actually help the swan or birds or ducks float. I think that's really important to note. So I'm going to go ahead and stop and jot on a Post-it of some new information that I learned. Okay, I'm going to put this right here. New information. I learned that feathers help birds float. Feathers can help birds plunge downward like a fishing sinker. Feathers can glide like a sled. Emperor penguins have tightly packed belly feathers that form firm, slick surfaces. The feathers make it easy for these birds to slide across ice and snow. I think this is pretty funny. I always thought that it was such a cool thing that penguins slide down ice and snow, kind of like what we do when we have snow. This kind of is a funny part for me, and I want to say that this is one of my favorite parts of this book. You don't normally see a lot of animals do this, and I think that when they do it, it makes them look kind of funny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop and jot. I'm going to write down my favorite part. All right. So here, I'm going to put a Post-it and I'm going to say my favorite part, and I put a little heart here just to remind me, but this is my favorite part so far in the book. Feathers allow the birds to sprint across the snow like snowshoes. But most of all, feathers can give birds the lift they need to race across the sky. Kinds of feathers. Many scientists study birds and they are learning new information every day. Right now, not all scientists agree about the best way to classify types of feathers. Here is one system that many scientists use. See here, I see all different types of feathers, and it looks like that they're putting them in different categories or different types. So here, looking at these are really long and big feathers. And if you look at these ones over here, they're kind of look like they are small, and it kind of looks like almost like a stick with little tiny feathers on the ends. And then this one kind of reminds me of like a bush, right? This one also reminds me kind of like a bush too. Definitely fluffy. The end. So boys and girls, if you notice as I'm going through this book, I use that strategy of stopping and jotting. Remember, readers use that strategy of stopping and jotting in order to help them to understand the book and to recognize different things about the book, whether it's a new important part or a favorite part or something that makes you think or wonder, or even if it's something that makes you laugh. So, when you go ahead and do your independent reading and you pick out a nonfiction book to read at home, I want you to think of different things that you can stop and jot about as you're reading throughout your book. Bye, boys and girls.